Hello everybody, welcome back to the I Am IT Geek YouTube channel. My name is Shabazz Dan, as ever, I am the IT Geek. Welcome back to another episode within my SC-100 Microsoft Cybersecurity Architect exam topic series. We started topic 4 in the last episode. We did part 1 of that and we're continuing that with part 2. We've covered a lot of topics, so I've had a lot of good information. We've covered a lot of theory and some practical elements within Microsoft Cloud, specifically around security, which I hope is helping you with your preparation. As I said right at the start, the sort of labs that are in GitHub are more to do with designing case studies. It's difficult for me to kind of demo that, so I thought, you know what, I'll do some Microsoft security, Defender for Cloud, Defender 365, Purview sort of stuff sent, and I'll do some of those demos. So hopefully you're enjoying that. So without further ado, let's get started with this episode. So this is, as I said, the SC-100 Microsoft Cybersecurity Architect. We're on topic 4, part 2 today. So as we mentioned last episode, this is actually, topic 4 is design a resiliency strategy for common cyber threats like ransomware. And in part 2, we're actually going to talk about ransomware protection and then jump into a demo. Let's talk about ransomware protection to start with. So ransomware attacks leverage privileged access for high impact. So what is high business impact? It's difficult to overstate the sort of potential business impact and damage of a loss of privileged access. Attackers with privileged access effectively have full control of all sort of enterprise assets and resources. This allows them to disclose any confidential data, stop all business processes, or even subvert business processes as well as machines, and to damage property, hurt people, or even worse, unfortunately. We'll talk about the high likelihood of the occurrence. The prevalence of sort of privileged access attacks has grown since the sort of advent of modern sort of credential theft attacks, starting with sort of the pass the hash techniques. These techniques first jumped into popularity with sort of criminals starting within sort of the 2008 release of the attack tool called Pass the Hash Toolkit. And these have grown into sort of a suite of reliable attack techniques, mostly based on the sort of Mimikatz toolkit. This weaponization automation of techniques allowed the attacks and their sort of subsequent impact to grow rapidly. Limited only by sort of target organizations' vulnerability to attacks and the attackers' sort of monetization incentive models as well. So again, as we can see here, the high business impact, profitable for attackers, room to grow, all this sort of stuff. So, these sort of attacks have grown a lot. So when we talk about ransomware protection, there are 3 phases you need to sort of configure your infrastructure to exploit attack weaknesses. So prepare your organization to recover from an attack without having to pay the ransomware is quite an obvious one. Limit the scope of damage as well of ransomware attack by protecting privileged roles. Finally, make it harder for the attacker to get into your environment by incrementally removing. Now let's look at sort of phase 1, which is develop that recovery plan. So, attackers demand payment under the threat that they won't give you sort of access back to your system and your data. This is most frequently done by encrypting your systems and data and demanding payment for the encryption key. Paying the ransom isn't as simple and clean as it may seem, because you're kind of dealing with criminals really who are motivated by payment, and often relatively amateur sort of operators who are using sort of toolkits provided by someone else. There is a lot of uncertainty as well around how well paying the ransom is actually work. There is no legal guarantee either that they will provide the key to decrypt 100% of your systems and data, or even provide a key at all. And the process to decrypt these systems uses sort of homegrown attack tools, which is often very clumsy and sort of a manual process as well. We'll talk about pay to avoid disclosure. So this is attackers demand payment in exchange for sort of not releasing sensitive or embarrassing data to the dark web or even other criminals, or even the public. To avoid being forced into payment, the profitable situation for attackers, the most immediate and effective action you can kind of take is to ensure your organization can restore your entire sort of enterprise from immutable storage, which neither the attacker, nor or you can modify. Identifying the most sensitive assets and protecting them at sort of a higher level of assurance is also critically important. But it is a longer and more challenging process to execute. We don't want you to sort of hold off, you don't want businesses to hold off other areas in phases 1 or 2, but Microsoft do recommend you get the process started by bringing together sort of business, IT, and security stakeholders to ask and answer questions. And some of those questions might be, what business assets would be most damaging if compromised? For example, what assets would our business leadership be willing to pay for an extortionate demand for, if attackers control them? How do these business assets translate to IT assets, such as files, application, databases, servers, and control systems? And how can we protect or isolate the assets that attackers with access to the general IT environment can't get to them? Secure backups is part of that recovery plan as well. So you must ensure that critical systems and their data are backed up, and the backups are protected against deliberate deletion or encryption by an attacker. Attacks on backups focus on crippling your organization's ability to respond without pain, frequently targeting backups and key documentation required for recovery to force you into sort of paying that extortionate demand. Most companies don't protect backups and restore processes against this level of sort of intentional targeting. This preparation also improves resiliency to natural disasters and sort of rapid attacks like WannaCry and sort of NotPetya. So from an implementation sort of checklist perspective, back up all critical data automatically on a regular schedule. It's going to allow you to recover data, to the last backup. Regularly exercise your BCDR, your business continuity DR plan. And this is obviously going to ensure rapid recovery of business operations by sort of treating a ransomware or extortion attack with the same sort of importance as a natural disaster, and protect backups against sort of deliberate deletion and encryption. So let's now move on to the next topic or the next phase, which is phase 2. So this is limit the scope of damage. So phase 2 of ransomware protection is to limit that scope of damage, as we said. In this phase, you protect privileged roles to prevent attackers from obtaining large scope of access for sort of potential damage to your data and systems. You need to have a privileged access strategy first of all, and you must implement a comprehensive strategy to reduce the risk of privileged access compromise. All of the security controls can easily be invalidated by an attacker with privileged access in your environment. Ransomware attacks use privileged access as a quick path to control critical assets in your organization for attack. And then again, if we talk about an implementation checklist, build like a multi-part strategy using the guidance of Microsoft. And this includes the checklist of enforce end-to-end sort of session security, protect and monitor identity systems, mitigate lateral traversal, and also ensure rapid threat response. The second part of phase 2, limiting the scope of damage, is detection and response. So your company needs to be very responsive and have responsive detection and remediation of common attacks on your endpoints, your email, and identities. Minutes do matter, so you must rapidly remediate sort of common attack entry points to limit the attacker's time to laterally traverse your tenancy and your infrastructure. From an implementation checklist perspective, apply the best practices for improving your detection response, and done task description, prioritize common sort of entry points. So we then come to phase 3. So there's obviously more to it, more to phase 3. So we've got remote access, email collaboration, endpoints and accounts. Around this is what we're trying to do is make it harder for them to get in. So infrastructure hardening. So phase 3 of ransomware protection is to make it harder for them to get in, basically. In this phase, you make the attackers work a lot harder to get into your own premises or your cloud infrastructure by incrementally removing the risks at the points of entry. The general best practices for hardening your infrastructure against ransomware attacks are divided into sort of 4 main areas: remote access, email collaboration, endpoints and accounts. From a remote access perspective, gaining access to your organization's intranet through remote connections, is an attack vector for ransomware attackers. When on-premises user account is compromised, the attacker is free to roam on intranet to gather intelligence, elevate privilege, and even install ransomware. The Colonial Pipeline cyber attack in 2021 is a prime example. So talk about email and collaboration. Implement sort of best practices for email collaboration solutions and make it more difficult for attackers to abuse them while allowing your workers to access external content easily and safely. Attackers frequently enter the environment by transferring malicious content with in authorized collaboration tools such as email and file sharing, and convincing users to run it as well. Microsoft has invested in enhanced mitigations that vastly increase protection against these sort of attack vectors. So next is endpoints. So implement relevant security features and rigorously follow software maintenance best practices for endpoints and your devices and applications. Prioritizing applications and sort of server client operating systems directly exposed to the internet and traffic content. Internet exposed endpoints are a common sort of entry vector and that provide attackers across the tenant's assets. Prioritizing blocking common OS and application vulnerabilities will be preventative control to slow or stop your attackers if they're executing the sort of next stages. Finally, we have accounts. So just as antique skeleton keys won't kind of protect a house against a modern day burglary, passwords cannot protect accounts against common attacks that we see today. So while MFA, multi-factor authentication, was once sort of the burdensome extra step, password authentication improves the sign experience using biometric approaches that don't require users to remember a type of password. Additionally, zero trust infrastructure, as we've mentioned already, stores information about trusted devices, which reduces the prompting and annoying out of bad MFA actions. So some key takeaways from about hardening your infrastructure. Talked about backups, so identifying business critical systems, checking for multiple copies of your backup, and storing backups offline or off-site as well. For those backup geeks out there, the 3-2-1 rule, very prevalent here. From a restore perspective, validate your backups are good before restoring them. Do regular restore tests. Exercise your BCDI, your business continuity disaster recovery plan regularly. Do regular tests. And protect or print supporting documents and systems required for recovery, such as restore procedures, sort of soloing instances. Finally, privileged access. Develop a strategy to protect those privileged roles. Prevent attackers from obtaining a large scope of sort of access for potential damage to data and systems. And ensure responsive detection and remediation for sort of common attack on your endpoints, email, and identity. So quite an informative episode there, or kind of session there. Talked about a lot around ransomware protection. It's quite a big topic, obviously always going to be a constant threat and going to be an interesting topic. So hopefully that's helped you understand a little bit more about that part of the exam. Let's now jump into the demo tent and continue with looking at those Microsoft services that are going to help you with your SC-100 exam. Hello, welcome back. We are here in the Microsoft Defender portal and we're going to be looking through some of the services and features that you can use to help with designing your sort of cybersecurity architecture. So hopefully this will give you some help within the exam. We've kind of looked at already the incident alerts, looked at exposure management, and in the last episode, if you remember, we looked at the devices. And I just want to go further down here and look at sort of the endpoint management here, but specifically, again, if we look at the endpoints, so we've got three options here. We've got vulnerability management, partner and APIs, and configuration management. Vulnerability management is what I kind of want to specifically focus on because, again, it's got so much valuable information. So these are your endpoints. These are your end user devices that are onboarded. Now, tell you what we'll do actually before we go into this. Let's actually drop all the way down to settings. And I'll go through the process of actually onboarding a device. So endpoints here. So first of all, in the settings we've got Microsoft Defender Portal, we've got Defender for XDR, endpoints, email collaboration, device discovery, cloud apps, and Microsoft Sentinel. So we'll go through all these at some point in these labs. But I just want to go to endpoints here. And again, we've got lots of features around here that we can enable. So advanced features, we've got where we can restrict correlation. We can enable EDR in block mode, automatically resolve alerts. We've got email notifications, we've got auto remediation that we can set up. What I actually want to do is go down to, actually we can also see the roles that we have as well and we need. I actually want to go down to device management and onboarding. So here we have multiple options on what we can do with device onboarding. It's all very relevant to depends on our what type of OS and what existing infrastructure we have. So here we can select the OS. So these are all the supported OSs to onboard into Microsoft Defender. So we've got Windows 7 SP1 and Windows 8.1, Windows 10 and 11, Server 28 R2 SP1, 2012 R2 and 2016, Server 2019 and 22, Mac OS, Linux Server, iOS and Android. So you can onboard all of these devices. So depending on what you choose will be dependent on what onboarding options you've got. So first of all, if we go click on Windows 10, because that's what I've onboarded before. You've got different connectivity types. You can either do standard or streamlined. So it tells us here, this package allows devices to onboard using streamlined connectivity method. And you can check devices you onboard meet specific prerequisites. So make sure you do check those. Deployment method. Now we've got multiple options where we've got a local script, which is up to 10 devices. So you can just run that on each machine. A group policy. Again, if you've got Active Directory domain services and you've got hybrid devices, group policy is probably a good way to go. Endpoint configuration, so configuration manager basically. So again, if you've got configuration manager with hybrid devices and you manage your devices through this, probably the best way to go. MDM or Intune. So in my example, I probably use this because I've got an Azure AD join device, or VDI onboarding scripts for non-persistent devices. So we can also use this because I'm using AVD, Micron AVD VM. And again, I'll give you an example. Let's just change that to the Windows Server 2019-2012. Again, you have the streamlined options. So the first device onboarded, so it's already, so I've already onboarded my first device. That's ticked straight away. Again, we don't have Intune. You notice Intune's missing, or MDM, because that's not an option with servers. Whereas let me just change it to iOS. See, this is different. Again, it changes the method of how you deploy it. So for Windows 10, 11, if you do a local script, for example, you download that package. It tells you what you need to do. You run a detection test. You open command prompt. You run that script, and it'll run the onboarding package. If you want to use group policy, it explains what you need to do. You need to open. So you again download the onboarding package, run a detection test, and then a successful detection test will be marked as complete, and a new alert will appear in a few minutes. So you run that command and basically point it to your executable onboarding package. So that's the first step to onboarding devices. Once you've onboarded devices, you'll find that they will appear in this dashboard here, or they'll actually appear as an asset. So what we'll do is I'll leave this little mini demo here because I do want to take a look at the vulnerability management dashboard in a bit more detail. So I don't want to try and do these labs too long because I'm going to try to keep these episodes short. So hopefully you've learned how to onboard devices. Definitely recommend you practice onboarding devices. Again, why is that relevant? It's going to help you design your onboarding mechanism and how you onboard devices. What is your organization? What fits them? Do you have the hybrid devices? Are they on-premises devices? Because then you use group policy. Lots of different methods of onboarding, and you need to design the way that's going to suit your organization. So that's why I thought it'd be relevant to show you that onboarding. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed that episode. Again, hopefully you find this content useful. Loads of useful links in the description. I've got the link to Measure Up practice exam, which is discounted, so make sure you invest in that. Very helpful for the preparation. Also got a link to the GitHub repository where there's some case studies you can do. And finally, the Microsoft Learn documentation for this exam, which I definitely recommend. It's free and I definitely recommend you do it. So yeah, thank you everybody for watching. Until next time, goodbye.